You want to know what to do so she never forgets you. Not for a week, not for a season. You want to live rent-free in her mind, the way a scent can yank you back to childhood, or a song can flood your chest with feelings you can't even name. Most men try to become unforgettable by doing more messages, more flowers, more effort, more noise. But memory doesn't obey volume, it obeys contrast, timing, and meaning. She doesn't remember the man who fills the air. She remembers the man who changes the air. The moment you understand that, you stop trying to be impressive and start becoming inevitable. If what you've heard so far is shifting how you see yourself, stay with me until the end, because we're just getting started and I'm going to give you the architecture, piece by piece, of how to become the man her mind refuses to misplace. First, you need a hard truth. You're not competing with other men. You're competing with her lifestyle, her routines, her endless scroll, her personal ambitions, insecurities, and the dozen micro-distractions that eat her attention every hour. The men who get lost are the ones who enter like a notification, brief, bright, and gone. The man she keeps replaying is a state change. He enters and something in the room lowers its shoulders. Time elongates. There's a quiet authority to him that doesn't ask to be believed. It simply is. That is the first imprint. You don't try to matter. You make the space different by the way you are in it. Your presence sets the frame. Before you speak, you breathe. Lower, slower, deeper than you're used to. Your shoulders are heavy, your jaw is relaxed, your eyes are alert but soft at the corners. You move like a man who doesn't owe the room an explanation. When you speak, you let the first word arrive a half-second later than your impulse. Half a beat, barely noticeable, yet it signals that your tongue is not dragging your brain. Your brain is leading your tongue. That micro-pause is a memory hook. She will not recall your exact sentence, but her nervous system will remember that around you. Time felt different, and that difference will call her back to you when she's alone and her guard drops. When you finally break the air, you avoid the obvious pathways that erase men from memory. No autopilot compliments about her looks, no recycled, context-free questions. You use high-resolution noticing. You observe something precise, grounded in reality, and you connect it to a meaning. You hold your glass the way people do when they're thinking 12 moves ahead. Or, your shoes don't match your jacket on purpose. That's a negotiation with attention. Specifics are surgical. They bypass the generic flattery she's heard 1,000 times and place you in a category of one. The man who actually sees. Seeing is rare. We remember the rare. Your eyes are part of your strategy. The way you look at her should be triangular. One triangle between eye, and a slow descent to the mouth before returning to the eyes. Not creepy, not hungry. Just attentive, like you're reading a paragraph and letting the meaning land. You keep your blink rate low. You nod once, not repeatedly. You let silence do some work. Silence is the black frame around the painting. It makes the colors impossible to ignore. Most men fill the pauses with nervous chatter. You allow breath, you allow the room. You create a pocket of presence inside the noise of the world, and she will remember the pocket long after she forgets the words. Memory loves contrast and peaks. That means you don't try to be everything, everywhere, all the time. You choose a signature, one sensory anchor that becomes yours. It could be your scent, subtle and consistent, applied once and allowed to warm on your skin. It could be the texture of your voice, low and unhurried, with a rough edge on some words. It could be the way you greet people, palms warm, thumbs firm, eye contact steady for a beat longer than most. Pick one anchor and own it. The brain ties memory to sensation. Give it a single thread to hold, and it will pull you from the background whenever that thread appears again in her life. Your conversation is engineered for resonance rather than performance. You move quickly past inventory talk, work, weather, generic opinions, and slide into the territory where self-respect and curiosity meet. You ask questions that go nowhere in particular, but everywhere that matters. What do you wish people would stop assuming about you? When do you feel most dangerous? In a good way. What's the decision you made that changed your trajectory more than any other? These are not interrogations. You aren't collecting data to use later. You are revealing her to herself in your presence. Here's why that makes you unforgettable. We remember the people we become around them. If she becomes more vivid, more honest, more alive while she's with you, she won't be able to file you away with the others. You will be mentally tagged as the man who makes me feel more myself. You sign your conversations with structure. Use the peak end rule to your advantage. Every interaction should have a clear peak, something emotionally charged, playful, or intimate, and a clean end that feels intentional. You don't drift off. You don't let the conversation bleed into awkwardness. You either escalate the connection or you exit with purpose. This was good. Let's press pause here. Wednesday, small espresso place on the corner at 7. We'll finish this thought. That's an end with a hook, and hooks hold memory in place. Your body language communicates a story without words. You occupy your space without apology. You don't shrink. You don't sprawl. Your gestures are economical. Hands open when you want to invite, fingers steepled when you're processing, palm down when you want to settle the energy. You don't fidget. You don't readjust your clothes every minute. The man who can be still under attention is the man a nervous system trusts. She won't articulate it consciously, but she will feel it. Stillness equals safety. Tempered intensity equals magnetism. You become the paradox that memory loves. Calm and charged, present and free, warm and untouchable. You use pattern breaks strategically because the brain tags novelty. A pattern break doesn't mean shock value, it means you take the expected and bend it 5 degrees. When she teases you, you don't bite. You smile and change the axis. I'll take that as a compliment from someone who notices detail. When a topic gets heavy, you lighten by changing the scale. Zoom out with me for a second. 10 years from now, what version of you laughs at this? When the energy floats too high, you ground it with a story fragment, not a full story. This reminds me of a moment in Lisbon where I had to bet on myself without a backup plan. Then stop. Leave the thread dangling. Threads create pull. Pull creates return. Your value is never theatrical. It's demonstrated in micro decisions. You choose the table with better light and a quieter corner without asking permission, but while watching her comfort. You adjust your seat so you can see the room and shield her from unnecessary traffic. You signal to the server with a nod before she realizes you noticed her glass is almost empty. You ask if she prefers warmth or fresh air before you open a door. None of this is subservience. It is leadership with awareness. The masculine that remembers is the masculine that remembers her nervous system, her pace, her preferences, while maintaining your center. Authority plus consideration is an imprint she compares every man to, even if she never says it out loud. You do not text like everyone else. Your messages have shape. Think in 3 beats. A hook that references the shared world between you, a vibe line that carries your tone, and a doorway that invites a response without demanding one. The way you dismantled that argument earlier, still thinking about it. Hook. It's rare to see someone go for the principle instead of the points. Vibe. Quick question. Would you rather master one craft for a decade or build 5? Doorway. You avoid the good morning spam that dissolves men into sameness. You send voice notes occasionally, 30 to 40 seconds, crisp with the same presence you carry in person. Your voice becomes part of her private soundtrack, and that's not accidental. It's design. You work with scarcity without faking it. You are available when it matters and absent when it's healthy. After a high-energy interaction, you pull back, not as a trick, but as a recognition that integration creates longing. The nervous system needs space to metabolize. If you sprint into her phone with constant pings, you flatten the very peaks you work to create. A synchronized absence, 1 or 2 days where you drop a single callback to a meaningful thread and then let it rest, makes the memory breathe. You trying cacio e pepe at that place made me rethink simplicity. That's enough. No question, no demand. You remind without insisting. You let the silence amplify you. You create callbacks deliberately because memory loves patterns with continuity. You name a small shared observation and resurrect it later in a different context. If she lit up talking about sketching at night because it clears her mind, you might send a photo of a tiny travel pencil set you found and say, "This feels like discipline disguised as play." If you notice she collects phrases, you might send a single line from a book that aligns with her identity. Not a quote dump. One line that says, "I hear your mind." People remember the ones who remember them. You protect your boundaries because boundaries are the edges that give you shape. She won't remember a man who can be moved by any breeze. She will remember a man who can be moved by values. If she tests you, and she will, you don't turn the test into a fight. You turn it into clarity. If she cancels last minute with a casual shrug, you reply, "I value time too much to treat it casually. Let's regroup when you can commit." That's not punishment. That's self-respect. If she presses for personal disclosures you're not ready to share, you say, "I open gradually and on purpose." If she says something disrespectful as a joke, you stop the frame with a small smile. I don't do that kind of humor with people I care to know. You don't lecture. You don't sulk. You set the weather. The man who sets the weather is the man she remembers when the storm passes. You engineer environments that create micro-adventures. The easiest way to be unforgettable is to be associated with a first. First time she tries a niche tea bar tucked behind a record store. First time she's in a saltwater pool at night. First time she writes a postcard to her future self and mails it. Novelty plus meaning equals imprint. You use the two-location rule for early dates. One small, intimate starter spot, and one contrasting second location within a 10-minute walk. The transition between locations is where chemistry often downloads from the body to the mind. That walk becomes a memory all by itself. The streetlights, the cooler air on her skin, the rhythm of your steps. She won't recall every word you said, but she'll remember how the city sounded as you crossed it together. Your exits are art. You leave on a high note, not when the energy has already descended. There's courage in being the one to end a moment while it's still glowing. I'm going to let this be the last frame for tonight. You stand, you hold her eyes, and you give a simple physical touch that matches the intimacy you've earned. A brief, grounded embrace, a hand on her upper back. Then you go. The door closes, and silence does its work. The echo is yours. Men who overstay teach the nervous system to relax around them. Men who exit on peaks teach the nervous system to ache for more. You keep a signature ritual without announcing it. Rituals are repeatable, unique behaviors that become your calling card. Maybe you always carry a tiny notebook and jot down one line she said that you want to remember. Then you read it back to her later. Maybe you mark the rim of your espresso with cinnamon and let her wonder why it tastes warmer. Maybe you take a quick detour to point out a hidden wall mural only visible from a certain angle. These don't scream for attention, they leave footprints. She follows footprints in her mind without meaning to. You build a masculine aesthetic that supports the story you're telling. Your clothes are not loud, fit over flash. One item of quality that becomes visually tagged to you, a leather band watch, a signet ring, a textured wool jacket you wear when the air turns colder. Your grooming is precise. You smell like a choice. You keep your posture consistent. You invest in shoes that touch the ground like they belong on it. You don't over-accessorize, but you do carry one object with a story. A battered fountain pen from a market, a small pendant you don't explain unless asked. Mystery isn't hiding. It's revealing slowly. You handle attention and tests with ease. If she flirts with your boundaries by flirting with others in front of you, you don't play jealousy theater. You smile, you continue your conversation, you remove your energy for a moment, and when she returns you say, "I'm drawn to women who are fully present." If she tries to provoke, you don't feed it. If she challenges your taste, you invite her deeper. Convince me. I like being persuaded by smart people. You convert friction into play. That's memorable because most interactions turn friction into arguments or apologies. You turn it into connection. You don't overshare your past. You let it color your present actions. When she asks what you do, you tell her the truth in a sentence that reveals your angle on life. I build systems that make chaotic things orderly. I design experiences that make people forget their phones for an hour. When she asks where you're from, you give her a puzzle piece with texture. A small place where silence was common, which made me hungry for big cities. You place dots and let her connect them over time. Connection is stronger when she participates in its creation. You practice the art of the 3-minute story. A 3-minute story has a spine, a precipice, a decision, a consequence, and a lesson. No rambling, no self-aggrandizement. You choose moments where you bet on yourself and paid for it in some way. Not just wins, costs. It signals depth without begging for sympathy. I had to tell a friend the truth and lost the friendship, but kept my integrity. The stories you choose are mirrors. She will look at you and see what kind of man you are under pressure, and that impression burns into memory faster than any bio ever could. You cultivate a life she can step into. Your apartment has warmth and order. Your books are not props. Your kitchen has the ability to produce something beyond takeout. You can sear, you can season, you can plate. A houseplant is alive because you didn't forget it, and that says more than you think. Your playlists are curated but not performative. Your calendar shows that you're moving towards something that doesn't revolve around her, because real attraction happens in the gravity field of a purpose. If this is hitting something inside you, drop your thoughts below. I read every single one, and if a concept here changes how you show up this week, I want to hear which one. You design the long tail of memory with re-entry points. Weeks after meeting, you might send a photo of a street sign that uses an unusual typeface because she once said fonts can make her nervous system relax. You might leave a book on her table with 2 pages dog-eared and a sticky note that says, "You'll disagree with this paragraph and love the next one." You might cook a dish she mentioned in passing and say, "I wanted to see if your childhood memory is accurate." You aren't trying to check boxes. You're weaving a story with continuity, and continuity is what the mind calls real. You avoid the traps that dissolve you. You don't chase validation with rapid-fire texts. You don't demand labels before connection has matured. You don't weaponize distance. You don't audition for the role of boyfriend by pre-solving her life. You don't let lust make promises your integrity can't keep. You don't play therapist. You don't play savior. You play the role only you can play, a man whose center stays intact while he opens generously. That center is your brand. Without it, everything else is tactics, and tactics without a center are forgettable. You use praise with precision and weight. You don't praise the obvious. You praise the disciplined, the courageous, the uncommon. I like how you protect your energy without making it other people's problem. There's clarity in how you refuse to perform. You argue like someone who's not trying to win, just trying to be accurate. Praise like this is a mirror handed to someone who rarely sees their best angles. That mirror becomes tied to you. She can't pick it up without remembering whose hand offered it. You are consistent without being predictable. Predictable is a dead map. Consistent is a trustworthy compass. Consistency means you reply within your natural rhythm. You show up when you say you will. You treat her with respect when you're aroused and when you're indifferent. You hold your boundaries on a bad day and on a great one. Your predictability is reserved for your values. Those never move. Your expression remains alive and surprising. That mixture, steady core, flexible surface, is what allows intimacy to deepen, because she can push against your edges and discover they're real. You cultivate masculine tension correctly. Tension is not pressure. Pressure tries to force outcomes. Tension invites exploration. You build it with pace, with proximity, with pauses at the edges of touch. Your hand lingers a breath longer near hers before you withdraw. Your voice drops on the last word. You shift from playful to sincere when she reveals something real. You don't collapse intimacy into physical escalation automatically. You let the moment breathe. The paradox: when you're not rushing to take, you become the man she wants to give to. The memory that forms is not of a taker. It's of a man who can hold energy without leaking it. You stay sovereign. Sovereignty means you can walk away from what insults your soul. You don't threaten to leave as a manipulation. You simply live by standards that make leaving an option you're unafraid of. This confidence is quiet, never flaunted, but it permeates you, and it's deeply memorable because it's rare. Most men negotiate with their dignity when attraction is on the line. You don't. You'd rather be alone than slightly diminished. That makes everything you give feel like a gift, not a trade. You invest in your masculine instrument, your body, because it broadcasts your identity before you speak. You train for functional strength and posture, not ego lifts that wreck your joints. You walk like a man who knows where he's going, even when he's undecided. You breathe from your diaphragm. Your belly expands on the inhale and contracts on the exhale. Your sleep is guarded. Your food is chosen with care. The light that hits your eyes in the morning is natural if you can manage it, because biology runs your mood more than your willpower does. This is not wellness theater. This is the foundation that allows you to carry presence like it's your birthright. You use curiosity as a scalpel. Curiosity, not judgment, is what opens people. When she confesses an insecurity, you don't minimize it or fix it. You ask what it protects her from and what it costs her. When she shares a dream, you don't cheerlead automatically. You ask what trade-offs she's willing to make. Curiosity like this is memory glue. Most men hear, you understand. Understanding is rare enough that it feels like intimacy all by itself. You protect her dignity at all times. If someone interrupts rudely, you include them briefly and then guide them away with warmth. If she steps into a story that makes her look small, you give her a ladder out of it by asking about what she learned instead of what she lost. If she's anxious, you bring your breath lower instead of telling her to calm down. Safety does not erase desire, it frees it. A woman's body can't want deeply in the presence of a man whose nervous system screams chaos. When your calm becomes her refuge, her memory becomes your ally. You create escalation pathways that feel like nature, not negotiation. Your hands might touch during a laugh. Your shoulder might brush hers as you lean in to hear. Your knee might rest near hers without pressing. You let the first deliberate touch land as a question, not a statement. If she answers yes with her body, leaning closer, sustaining eye contact, softening, you proceed. If she answers maybe or no, you relax back into presence without withdrawal or pouting. This emotional neutrality is rare. It tells her, I want you, I'm not in a hurry, and I want this to be good for both of us. That combination is electricity with integrity, and it's unforgettable. You leave artifacts behind, but not in a needy way. An artifact is a small, purposeful object or line that becomes a memory magnet. A folded place card with a phrase she said, and the date. A napkin sketch of the travel route you argued about for fun. A photo taken at arm's length with the city behind you, printed and slid into her book with no caption. Artifacts work because they turn fleeting moments into physical anchors. The next time she stumbles on them, the past lights up like it's alive again. And who is at the center of that warming? You. You master reframing as your conversational superpower. When she complains about an obstacle, you acknowledge the truth and then tilt it. Maybe this isn't a block. Maybe it's a filter designed to reveal who it's meant for. When she downplays her achievements, you name the cost she paid. You didn't get that by accident, you bled for it. When she hesitates on a desire, you normalize it. Of course you want that. Wanting big things is a sign you're awake. People remember the person who changes the meaning of their experiences in a way that makes them stronger. You become a living reframe, and the mind circles back to strength like a tongue on a healing tooth. You're intentional with timing because timing is the skeleton of memory. You don't text late at night when loneliness makes everything feel false in the morning. You reach out mid-afternoon with a line that threads into her day without derailing it. You don't keep her until exhaustion erodes the glow of the evening. You walk her to the car, you hold her for a breath, you say her name like it matters. Names matter. Use her name at the right moments and it becomes a cue that drops her out of her head and into her body. You refuse to be a secret. If she tries to keep you compartmentalized because it protects her comfort, you bring light. I'm not a hidden chapter. Not with anger. With clarity. When you live in clarity, memory works in your favor because there's no cognitive dissonance. She doesn't have to split you into good in private and uncertain in public. You're the same in both. Authenticity may be overused as a word. As a practice, it's still rare. And rare is remembered. You anticipate her before she articulates. Not mind reading, pattern reading. If she gets quieter when she's overstimulated, you guide her to a softer space. If she speaks faster when she's excited, you match her tempo for a moment and then slow it down with your voice so the conversation lands. If she loves to plan, you occasionally take it from her and do it well so she can relax. If she hates to plan, you provide just enough structure that she feels held without feeling controlled. Anticipation is foreplay for the nervous system. The body remembers consistent relief. You don't mistake drama for depth. You don't create chaos to be missed. Men who rely on chaos to be remembered get remembered, but as a lesson, not a longing. You want longing. Longing requires trust. You earn it by being exciting without being unstable, by being intense without being reckless, by being playful without being careless. That combination is adult, and it's magnetic to adults. You operate with quiet standards around intimacy. You don't chase novelty for its own sake. You chase quality of connection. You don't allow physical escalation to outpace emotional safety. You don't aim for conquest, you aim for experience. A man who respects the pace of a woman's mind as much as the rhythm of her body becomes the man she associates with deep pleasure. And the body remembers deep pleasure better than it remembers almost anything else. You practice the discipline of disappearance and return. Disappearance, Short, clean periods where you immerse in your life fully, communicate that you're focused, and then actually be focused. Return. Re-emergence with substance. Share a win, a lesson, a failure you metabolized. I went dark for 2 days to finish this proposal. It went through. I'm grilled, but satisfied. You're not using absence as a blade. You're using it as a breath. She learns that when you're gone, you're real somewhere else, not drifting. When you come back, you bring something back. That trains her nervous system to trust your cycles, and trust is the soil where obsession grows healthy. You maintain your brotherhoods. Men who stand alone rarely stand strong. You spend time with men who sharpen you, humble you, and celebrate you. She doesn't need all the details, but she needs to feel that you're not an island. Women remember men who are invested in by other men they respect. It signals groundedness. It signals legacy. It tells her that your life has pillars beyond romance, which makes romance with you feel safe and bright, not desperate and consuming. Now listen closely. Being unforgettable is not about performing the most tricks, sending the most texts, saying the perfect lines, or building a highlight reel of nights out. It's about becoming the axis around which experiences organize themselves. It's about walking into a room and shifting the texture of time. It's about making her feel seen without stripping your own focus. It's about being so rooted in your values that every touch, every word, every absence, every return resonates with a consistent frequency. You don't play her nervous system like an instrument. You tune your own, and hers responds. So here's your move from tonight forward. Breathe lower, speak later. Notice with precision. Pick a signature sensory anchor and make it yours. Structure every interaction for a peak and a clean end. Use callbacks that reveal you were present. Carry boundaries that feel like home. Choose environments that create micro-adventures. Exit on highs. Leave artifacts that pull memory forward in time. Text with shape, not need. Build tension without pressure. Lead without hurry. Protect dignity. Reframe reality into strength. Disappear cleanly and return with substance. Keep a life that demands respect, not permission. If you felt a shift while listening, keep this momentum until your next interaction and test one concept, just one. Watch how the air around you changes. Let her notice the pace of your words, the calm in your eyes, the intentionality of your exits. This is how you become the man she can't misfile, the one whose name is a password her mind keeps entering on its own. If this hit a nerve, tell me which piece you're going to apply first. I read every single comment because I want to see how you sharpen. And if you have a brother who needs this, send it to him today. Don't keep it to yourself. Men who raise the standard make the world better for everyone, including the women who will be lucky enough to remember you.